Alright, so like any normal person during spring break, I got bored and felt like building a sailboat. So I went to Home Depot, spent a crap ton of money, and got 14 sheets of plywood. Note that I know nothing about boat building. I literally bought the cheapest and nicest looking boat plans that I could find on the internet. So with that, here's episode 1. So I have 7 sheets right here and the other 7 are over there, and I'm just going to do a compilation of me drawing out the bulkheads and an explanation of how I did it. I just want to show you guys that right now that some of the sections have to have a curved line, so this is how I do it. Basically what I do is hammer in a nail 3/4 of an inch away from my mark so I have enough room to place a strip of wood. Then using the strip of wood I can push it up against all the nails and make a nice curved line. Starting with sections H1, I'm just going to transfer the measurements onto the plywood. This was probably by far the longest part of the boat build just because I was bent over the whole time trying to transfer the measurements. If you guys ever do this, I highly suggest getting a table where you can stand up and do this. Now that I have all my sections marked out, I can now use the trick that I showed you guys earlier with the nails and long strip of wood.
Clean straight line.
So this is the first piece out of 4 that I have to mark out, but I'm not going to bore you guys, so I'm just going to finish this sheet of plywood.
So there is the second half done. Pretty easy. And now I'm fully done with sheet 6. I'll just move on to the next one.
Moving on, I have to completely redesign the bottom of the hull because in the plans, all the markings and measurements were completely off.
Here are the lengths of each section for the hull and the total length of the hull. So now all I have to do is find the thicknesses for each section, and I'm going to do that on the back. Alright, so here are the thicknesses for each section. It varies, but now I just gotta transfer this over to the plywood, so I'll do that right now.
Now with the help of my friends, we're marking and cutting out the bottom of the hull.
Alright, so now we're just gonna do the last 2 sheets.
Once we got that finished, I went back to marking out the bulkheads and exterior panels. So this process wasn't that complicated, it just took a fairly large amount of time. If you're wondering, it took me about a week to mark out all the bulkheads and exterior panels.
Alright, so now I have most of the sheets all drawn out. I'm going to start the cutting process and cut everything out. To cut all the pieces out, I'm just using a regular jigsaw and a circular saw. And to get the lines extra straight, I might use some clamps and a large straight edge. I'm just going to start cutting each sheet. And that's the first piece cut out. This will be the back of the boat, or it's also called the transom. So I'll just continue cutting everything else. for this cut, I am using a long straight edge and some clamps just to get a perfectly straight line. So for this piece C2, I have to cut out this middle section. So what I'm going to do is take a drill bit the same size as my jigsaw blade, or a little bit bigger, and just drill a hole on the inside of this line, and then take the jigsaw, put the saw in the hole, and then just go around and cut everything out. Alright, so it's not perfect, but I got the job done.
Now I'm just moving on to the larger bulkheads. Here, I'm cutting out the door in the center bulkhead, and I'm using the same trick as in piece C2. I'm just drilling a hole for the jigsaw blade to fit into.
Alright, so with that little hiccup that I have, what I'm doing is I tape the back of this, and I already filled it with glue. I'm just using Gorilla Glue, and I'm just filling it in here, and then I'm going to use this small screwdriver to just push it down even more.
I really should have used epoxy resin instead of Gorilla Glue for this gap.
So now I'm working on the biggest rib, and when I'm done with this, I'm going to start building the bottom frame to get the bottom of the hull curved.
If you're wondering, I'm cutting out these little open areas for storage underneath the cockpit. Moving on, I'm cutting out the exterior panels for the cabin, and you'll see how these will be installed in the next few episodes.
Before I finish cutting out the rest of the wood, I'm going to work on the frame. So this is the frame that the boat will sit on top of to give the hull its curved shape on the bottom. So I'll get started with that right now.
For the frame, I'm just using a bunch of 2x3s, scrap pieces of plywood, and a lot of screws.
So now that the bottom of the frame is done, I'm going to use these scrap sheets of plywood to make the raised parts that will give the hull its curved bottom. So these parts right here. Yeah.
Now I'm just marking the height of each section on the extra sheets of plywood.
Each little support piece, well, that's what I'm calling it. I'm now just gonna cut them out with this skill saw. Okay, so I got each piece cut out now, and I marked it out where they should go, and I got some scrap wood, so I'm going to use these to make some angle joints. Hold these planks up.
Using the leftover 2x3s, I just made some simple supports to hold up the sheets of plywood, which will eventually hold up the boat.
So I finished up the first one, got the second done, and now I'm working on the third, fourth, and fifth one, so I'll do a time lapse of all those. frame for the bottom of the boat. It's not perfect, but it should get the job done. For anyone who's curious, the whole length of this is 15 feet, and at its widest point right here, to that edge over there, it's 4 feet 9 inches. So those are pretty much the dimensions for this frame.
With that, if you guys made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching, and the next episodes are going to be coming out very shortly.